Hello to all of you from around the world. I want to welcome you to another great edition of SOULIVITY Today, broadcasting live from our studio right here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and on KMED 1490 AM radio in Southern California. Listen, my name is Brian Westley Johnson. You know me, and I hope you've had an amazing week. We have a fantastic show coming up because today is our Hot Topics Friday, where we bring you news stories and other information that you may or may not have heard around the world. We're so glad that you're here because, again, this stuff is going to be amazing. So let's get to our first story. A couple of weeks ago, former President Jimmy Carter celebrated his 99th birthday with his wife, Rosalind, and their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren in Plains, Georgia. Now, as tributes poured in from around the world, it was an opportunity for the Carter family to honor his personal legacy. And to commemorate that, here's a video of his grandson, Jason, talking about the decades-long UAE Carter Center partnership, which has helped avert at least 80 million cases of the devastating guinea worm disease, which later expanded to eliminate additional neglected tropical diseases that affected the world's marginalized and most vulnerable community.
The United Arab Emirates is one of the Carter Center's most valued partners, and it is our pleasure to celebrate this fourth decade of partnership to combat neglected tropical diseases. This relationship began long ago with the friendship between Sheikh Zayed and my grandfather, and they did share a lot of the same values about people and community. They both also understood, I believe, that the power of people who on the outside are in rural or poor communities have the ability to make great change in their lives. The power of those communities to make a difference in the world is really the driving force behind the work that the Carter Center, the UAE, and the Al Nahyan family has done together. And it has now a true multi-generational relationship between our families, between the UAE and the Carter Center. And as a demonstration of this commitment, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed pledged $10 million to assist the guinea worm eradication program in its effort to reach the very end of the disease. The commitment to eradicating guinea worm disease is deeply personal for my grandparents. They first heard about this disease in the 1980s. It was not only neglected as a tropical disease, it was essentially unknown outside of the places where it was affecting people. And this was in the poorest, most marginalized places in the world. When we began, this disease affected millions, literally millions of people. We have just a handful of cases left. So we have the ability, we've come to that last mile, but one of the things that we have learned and that we understand is this last mile is crucially important. We congratulate Sheikh Mohammed on his many initiatives to combat disease, including creating the Reaching the Last Mile Fund, founding GLIDE, the Global Institute for Disease Elimination, and his personal philanthropy. My grandparents have spent a great deal of time in the UAE over the years. They cite it as one of their favorite places to visit. When I became chair of the Carter Center's Board of Trustees, one of my very first trips was to the UAE to say thank you to our partners. And I am excited to come back and pay another visit. The Carter Center, United Arab Emirates will continue the work to eradicate guinea worm disease, to make the world a healthier and more peaceful place, to demonstrate that it can be done, and to provide, we hope, an example for the rest of the world.
Absolutely amazing. I'm remembering a story about Jimmy Carter, where I think just up until recently, over his lifetime with Habitat for Humanity, he personally assisted and supported the building of over 6,000 homes. So hats off to you, Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter, and the entire Carter family and their foundation for what they do. Let's get to our next story. Did you know that Black and American Indian Alaska Native women have higher rates of pregnancy related death compared to white women in America? Well, the fact is, maternal and infant health disparities are symptoms of a broader underlying social and economic inequity that are rooted in racism and discrimination. Here's a clip from News 19 WTLX in California talking about this problem with two esteemed doctors from the University of Southern California's College of Nursing.
And the numbers are startling. This morning, we are discussing the ongoing issue of infant mortality and maternal mortality rates among Black women and children. Now, to help put this in context and show just how much of a problem this is, we want to bring you some numbers. Studies show Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications than white women in the U.S. And here in South Carolina, the maternal mortality rate is 2.4 times higher for Black women than white women. And when it comes to Black infants, they are dying at a rate nearly 2.5 times of that of white infants. So this morning, I am joined by Assistant Professor Dr. Jules Scott and Associate Professor Dr. Tisha Felder with USC's College of Nursing. Both, I want to thank you so much for joining me early this morning to have a very important conversation. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So first question is, what are some contributing factors to this crisis?
Yeah. There are so many contributing factors, and I think what we know is that a lot of these deaths are preventable. And so I think when we think about that they're preventable, then that means we have to take action. There are things that happen before the woman gets pregnant, so preconception, access to care, access to providers that actually will listen to Black women when we come in and present to the healthcare provider. Or a few that come to mind, cardiovascular related conditions are huge and something that we can absolutely address.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that it's preventable, I think, is one of the most heartbreaking aspects of this whole situation, is it doesn't have to be this way. Now, Dr. Felder, I want to talk to you about what are some of the impacts of these racial disparities that we see when it comes to moms and babies.
So one of the areas that I focus a lot on is breastfeeding promotion. And we know that if mom's birthing process is traumatic, she has a lot of issues, it makes it almost impossible for breastfeeding. And we know that human milk is the most powerful resource we have for improving the lives of our infants. And unfortunately, many Black infants are not as likely to be breastfed as other infants. And so this becomes kind of this cycle that not only impacts, unfortunately, the health of mom, but also of the baby.
Now, I want to talk a little bit more about this. Both of you are doing such important work and research into this topic. Do you feel like it is an issue that people are really taking seriously or understand the magnitude of?
Yeah, I mean,
there's a big sigh with that, yeah.
Yeah, I would say, you know, I think the fact that we're here talking about this this morning is an indication of how important I think this issue has been. And I think, Dr. Scott, you know, you'd agree. Like, I think we're talking about this a lot more.
I think so. I think we're gaining some momentum, which is great and needs to happen. I think there's been a number of really highly published deaths that have happened and near experiences among celebrities, and that has also brought attention to this issue. And I think now that we're aware of it, then it's about what are we going to do. We know that women who have like preeclampsia in their pregnancy or at increased risk of having that happen again in a subsequent pregnancies. And so that's high blood pressure and some complications during pregnancy. And right now we don't have good interventions for these mothers. After they have their babies, then what are we doing to help support them so that this doesn't happen again? How do we support them? Also thinking about across the life course, because once you have high blood pressure in pregnancy, your risk for cardiovascular disease increases as well. And so it's what happens in pregnancy, what happens in that 6 weeks and the year after, and then even thinking about the broader life course picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to bring a statement that DHEC, they just released some numbers, and this is coming from Kimberly Seals. And she said earlier this month, we must continue our work to ensure we are reaching more expecting parents so we can close this gap, which will assist in bringing the total infant mortality rate down as well. How do we close the gap? We know DHEC is doing work. You are both doing work at USC, but how as a community can we help close this gap?
One thing is policy. We know that, I think Dr. David Williams, who's a health disparities expert, said all policy is health policy.
Wow.
And so I think that good policies, such as, some that we even have here in South Carolina, so now that our state employees have parental leave, and that's a big deal, that gives mom and her body and her baby time to connect, to rest, to heal from that process. We also know that expanding coverage for Medicaid, so to cover not just that birthing process, but also the postpartum care. And so those types of things, I think, are things that we can do in the community to support those policies, and that will really, just help our families.
Absolutely. I want to thank you both so much for joining me this morning. Moms, make sure that you continue to advocate for yourself. Families, advocate for these mothers as well. And
Wow, we're going to take a quick break, everybody, but don't worry, we've got even more of SOULIVITY Today coming up. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. SOULIVITY Today is brought to you by Happy Travelers Tours and Old Vine Wine Tours. Find all of the Satana products at our Go shop at go.soulivity.com.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame, living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. SOULIVITY is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us, a place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
Hey there, we're back here with more on SOULIVITY Today. We're talking about hot topics on a Friday, where we bring you some of the stories that you may or may not have heard about around the world. Well, there is exciting news from the world of space and technology. Another space race is on. And while we have landed on the moon, no country has ever landed on its south pole. So, space agencies from the United States and China are in a race to get there first and plant their country's flag there. Here's more on this amazing story from Newsthink.
We're in a space race with China.
NASA Administrator Bill Nelson is warning that China might start claiming territory on the moon.
You see the actions of the Chinese government on Earth. They go out and claim some international islands in the South China Sea, and then they claim them as theirs. So naturally, I don't want China to get to the South Pole first with humans and then say, this is ours, stay out.
That's the moon's south pole he's talking about. Spacecraft have detected large amounts of water ice in the lunar south pole, in areas that never received sunlight. That ice could potentially be extracted and used for air, drinking water, and rocket fuel. NASA plans to send a rover called Viper in 2024 to further explore the area. Viper will drill into the moon's surface, analyzing samples to create detailed maps of where water is concentrated.
We want to make sure that that's available to all, not just the one that's claiming it.
The South Pole's deep and dark craters significantly differ from the bright and relatively flat surface where Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed in 1969.
They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes.
It's been 50 years since the Apollo missions.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
President Kennedy's challenge set up a competition with the Soviet Union, the other great superpower at the time.
Today, a new competitor has emerged.
China's space program is notoriously secretive. While NASA proudly streams live video from the International Space Station, nobody knew about the spacewalks aboard China's Tiangong space station until after they happened. According to The Economist, China's secrecy isn't surprising. Quote, given the prestige at stake, Chinese officials may be inclined to hide failures. Another reason is the close ties between China's space program and the People's Liberation Army, which demands protection of state interests.
And here we go.
The U.S. currently leads the space race. It spent $62 billion on its space programs in 2022, reportedly 5 times more than what China spent. The U.S. has 4,500 satellites in orbit around Earth, while China has 600. But Beijing is catching up fast. It built the Tiangong space station in just a year and a half, compared to the 13 years it took to construct the ISS, albeit the ISS is 5 times larger. The Pentagon predicts that China will surpass the U.S. and become the dominant player in space by 2045. China has already made remarkable progress since sending its first astronaut, or taikonaut, into space in 2003. It became the first nation to land a spacecraft on the far side of the moon, and only the second country after the U.S. to successfully operate a rover on Mars. Its next goal is to land astronauts near the moon's south pole by 2030.
The question is, will the U.S. return to the moon before China gets there?
Artemis plans to send a crew in late 2025, but delays are likely. NASA selected SpaceX's Starship for the mission, although the fully reusable rocket hasn't yet completed a successful orbital flight. Starship launched for the first time in April, soaring across the Texas sky before plummeting into the Gulf of Mexico.
My concern is the same because they haven't launched.
NASA Associate Administrator Jim Free expressed his doubts.
They need to launch multiple times, not just for us, but for them. And then they need to launch multiple times for us.
The journey to the moon requires a modified Starship to launch into Earth's orbit. Another Starship refuels it before it heads on a path to the moon. NASA's SLS will launch from Earth, carrying crew in the Orion spacecraft, which meets up with Starship in lunar orbit. Astronauts will transfer from Orion to Starship, which will take them to the moon. Since there's very little atmosphere on the moon, Starship is modified to do without fins for landing. For the trip home, Starship meets up with Orion left in lunar orbit. The crew transfers over to Orion for the return to Earth. But imagine a scenario where the SLS and Orion aren't needed. Starship could launch with the crew aboard, rendezvous for refueling with another Starship, and then head to the moon. This version of Starship retains its heat shield and flaps, ensuring a safe and controlled descent for landing back on Earth. China is planning its own version of Starship, the Long March 9, but it's believed to be a decade away. Starship may be NASA's pivotal asset in outpacing China in space. NASA's relationship with SpaceX is one of its 169 international partnerships, a network far more extensive than China's alliances with Russia, Iran, Pakistan, Thailand, and Turkey.
The possibility of the U.S. and China working together is off the table.
Congress passed the Wolf Amendment in 2011, which prohibits NASA from working with Chinese government-owned entities due to fears of technological theft, risks to national security, and worries about human rights abuses. So the US and China are on separate paths to the moon. Whoever wins the race could gain a considerable advantage, as the moon is considered to be the critical stepping stone to Mars. The race is on and the stakes are high.
Wow, wow. We're going to keep on this story. I'm a space nut, so I want to find out, who's going to get there first, and if it really is off the table of China and the U.S. working together to get there. So we're gonna talk more about that later. Listen, let's get into our next story. It comes from the motherland of Africa, where thankfully several important historic artifacts have been returned home to Kenya, their place of origin. Now, here's more from the New African Channel on this amazing story.
For centuries, Africa has endured the heartbreaking loss of its invaluable artifacts, stripped away by colonial powers and collectors driven by greed. These stolen treasures, imbued with immense cultural and spiritual significance, represent the very essence of African heritage. Their removal from their rightful homes stands as a haunting testament to the deep injustice inflicted upon African communities. However, some Western institutions are making huge efforts to return stolen artifacts in their possession, serving as a glimmer of hope and reigniting the discussion around the imperative need for the repatriation of every African artifact scattered across the globe. But as we celebrate these victories, we must ask ourselves a profound question. How can we rectify the past and foster a future where every African artifact is reunited with its origins, restoring dignity and healing the wounds of historical plunder? Hello and welcome. This is Rain Smith, and you are watching the New Africa Channel. According to multiple news reports, 37 wooden memorial statues known as Vigango are being returned from Illinois to Kenya, where officials believe they should have remained and never been removed. The Illinois State Museum reported that the Vigango statues have been returned to the National Museums of Kenya for repatriation to Mijikenda villages. Officials from the Illinois State Museum and other museums and universities that had Vigango in their possession announced that they will visit Nairobi this week to participate in a ceremony to recognize the return of the sacred objects. The statues, which stand as tall as 7 feet, are regarded as important cultural relics because they portray deceased male enders and are thought to contain their spirits. They were often erected in front of a homestead in memory of a male elder in the Mijikenda community who had died and were not meant to be moved. The Vigango were initially removed from Mijikenda villages and sacred sites in the 1980s and bought by art collectors, according to officials. They were then transferred to the Illinois State Museum as part of a significant African art collection, but unbeknownst to the museum, the Vigango never should have been taken in the first place. It's important for these communities that the Vigango go back and are part of the community again. Dr. Brooke Morgan, curator of anthropology at the Illinois State Museum, said in a statement, because it means that their community will be healthy in terms of spiritual wellness, and that these things can't be separated from their communities. These items are sacred and inalienable from the people who created them, Morgan said. Separating the Vigango from their rightful owners harms the spiritual well-being of the whole community. The museum has long recognized the importance of returning these statues to Kenya and appreciates the institutions that have helped pave the way for such a significant large-scale return, she concluded. Indeed, members of the community revere these statues and frequently attribute disasters like disease, drought, and crop failure to their absence, according to Linda Giles, a retired anthropology professor at Illinois State University who has studied the Mijikenda and other coastal villages. Dr. Giles said she was delighted to see more museums return artifacts to their home countries. It takes a while, but it's catching wind, she said. Museums are deciding they shouldn't have these. Also, the sacred connections these artifacts have with their countries of origin are why curators like Dr. Morgan of the Illinois State Museum believe these museum artifacts should be returned. We just don't have the right to them, said Dr. Morgan. They represent a spirit, she added. Sadly, even after museums decide to repatriate artifacts, Dr. Morgan says they must navigate a maze of red tape. When Dr. Morgan started working at the Illinois State Museum in 2018, she was advised that returning the statues was a top priority. However, the museum waited since the beneficiaries would have to pay high costs. Because they are deemed art, the artifacts would be taxed upon entry into the country. This is one of the main reasons why museums around the world continue to hold and exhibit stolen antiquities. However, Since repatriation remains a topic of debate and organizations that have not done so face increased scrutiny, more are embarking on what may be a lengthy process to return assets. The long-awaited return of the stolen artifacts from Kenya marks a significant step towards rectifying historical injustices and honoring the rich cultural heritage of Africa. This act of repatriation not only signifies a triumph for the affected communities, but also serves as a reminder of the imperative for other institutions holding stolen cultural artifacts to follow suit. It is high time that museums, collectors, and nations across the world reflect upon their roles in preserving cultural diversity and righting the wrongs of the past. By actively returning these treasures to their rightful homes, we can collectively contribute to a more equitable future, where cultural heritage is respected and celebrated in its authentic context.
Thank you to New Africa Channel for that amazing story. I'm so happy that at least this dialogue is beginning about how we can return some of these historical artifacts back to their countries of origin. Listen, everyone, we're going to take another break, but when we come back, we'll have more of SOULIVITY Today, including some really good news about climate change. So we'll be back in 2 minutes.
6 years ago, when I started SOULIVITY, my vision was to support everyone in improving their life through the discovery of their passion and purpose, so they could become the best version of themselves, to battle fear and ignorance, and create a better world today. Get inspired to live your passion and purpose. Visit soulivity.com now.
Do you see me kneeling on this dual roller called Parasetter? It's actually comfortable because of this channel and the softness of the special foam. It feels like my kneecaps are being massaged. When I lie down, my spine is housed in this channel, while the convex rollers massage my muscles. They let go and lengthen. There's a traction effect from my head on the headrest and my mid-back from the rib wrap, which hugs me. When I start the breathing sequence, I feel calm because my cortisol levels are dropping. Lower cortisol means bye-bye constant hunger. Parasetter is 40 inches long and much more comfortable than old-style rollers, but it weighs only 10 ounces. Parasetter, just like Pilates was, is no longer an insider secret. Do yourself a favor. Reset your parasympathetic nervous system. Defeat stress. Lying, sitting, kneeling, or standing. This unique patented roller helps everyone.
Hey, we're back with more amazing stories on SOULIVITY Today. We are talking hot topics where we bring you some of the stories that you may or may not have heard about around the world. Now, let's get to our next story. You know how there's so much discouraging news reports about the effects of climate change? Where here is one that will actually make you feel good about what we've been doing to combat it. You know, scientists believe that our efforts are having a positive effect on the ozone layer. Here's more about this great news from NBC News.
So you know how every time it feels like people on the news talk about the climate crisis, it is bad news, it is gloom, it is doom. Well, how about this? Some good news on this tonight, because scientists today say the Earth's ozone layer is actually healing. Look at these pictures. This is a big deal. The ozone layer, you know, is the thing that blocks radiation from the sun that's been linked to skin cancer, cataracts, crop damage. The ozone layer protects us from some of that. You can see this animation now that NASA is releasing. The change in how thick the ozone is over the last few decades. It's actually getting better. And why is it getting better? Because people aren't using as many, manufacturers aren't producing as many CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. This is something that's in insulating foams, it's a refrigerant, it's not good for the ozone. People kind of got smart to that, and it's been used less and less. That's been making a difference. Now listen, here is your grain of salt caveat, right? The progress is slow. They hope this hole that's actually a thinning in the layer over Antarctica is going to be filled, but it'll take some time. 43 years. Time, specifically, to be exact. Bill Cairns is joining us now. And Bill, like we always have you on to talk about the destructive storms, and especially what we're seeing, for example, in California. We often ask you about the climate connection as well. And this is a big deal for the climate because it means that not all hope is lost, right? That things that humans can do can actually help undo the things that humans did before.
Hallie, in terms of environmental issues, this is the biggest victory that we've had in humanity. Like, we had a major problem.
Well, please write our lead next time. My Lord, Bill, that's one way to say it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you think about it, in 1985, all of a sudden scientists were like, wait a second, we have this hole in our ozone. And ozone is what protects our skin from ultraviolet rays in our crops. And they were like, we got to fix this. And as a world population, we've never come together before to solve a problem like that. And so the UN met, they came up with the Montreal Protocol. It only took 2 years, and everyone was like, yes, let's get rid of these chlorofluorocarbons. That's what was in your refrigerators, in your air conditioners, and they banned them. Now, it took until the year 2000 for the hole in the ozone. That was when it hit its peak, its climax. That was when it was its largest. So it still was 13 years later. And so over the last 20 years, scientists have been watching it, and they were going to say it was getting better, but they weren't quite sure. And then finally, they've now come out, as yesterday, and they said it had hit its peak. It's its biggest. And as you mentioned, it's still going to take a long time. And this is kind of our climate lesson here, Hallie, is that they say it's going to be till 2060s until Antarctica fully recovers. That's going to be 80 years later. So when you do something to the atmosphere of our planet, and then you want to try to change it, it's going to take a long time. And that's what people really don't understand about, even if we stopped using, all of, oil and gas and everything today, it's like 100, 150 years later that those changes would be found.
But that makes a difference, right? I mean, whether it's 80 years or 100 years or 150 years, presumably humanity will still be on this planet.
I think that's a lot of people are like, okay, so we did that. We solved that problem. We got together as a world population, and we solved this. So why can't we do this? Why can't we do this with climate change? And the biggest thing is that we had something called hydrofluorocarbons to replace the chlorofluorocarbons, the CFCs. And we literally just swapped them out. And by the way, those aren't the best for climate change either. So, those actually help warm the planet, the ones that we replaced the chlorofluorocarbons with.
Okay, Bill, I mean, good vibes only, please. Can we please, just for once?
Just for once. But I think the biggest deal is, I think you, Hallie, would put something else in your car. I wouldn't use gas on my stove in my house if we had something to replace it with. The biggest issue with climate change is we just haven't had anything to do that with yet.
Yeah, Bill Cairns, it's such a good point. Thank you so much for being with us to break this down. Interesting stuff for sure.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? Finally, we have some really good, some good information about some positive effects that are happening. Still a long way to go. We still have to fight climate change, but it's nice to have a positive story for once. Let's get to our next story. Everybody who knows me knows how much I love movies. Well, to keep you informed about the latest and greatest in the film industry, here's a sneak peek at the amazing films that are scheduled to be released in the upcoming couple of years. You'll want to grab your popcorn for this amazing clip from the folks over at Film Royalty.
Prepare for an exciting cinematic journey with enchanting stories and thrilling adventures. From Godzilla to Ballerina, upcoming movies promise something for everyone. Get your popcorn ready and mark those release dates for an unforgettable movie experience. Mufasa: The Lion King, July 5, 2024. Coming in 2024 as part of Disney's upcoming movie lineup is Mufasa: The Lion King, which is a movie that comes before the original The Lion King. Right now, the only thing we know about the story is that Mufasa will be shown as an orphan, and the storytellers will be Timon and Pumbaa. Barry Jenkins is the director, and he's going to explore Mufasa's life story, his history with Scar, and how he became the ruler of the Pride Lands. Excitingly, you'll get to watch Mufasa: The Lion King in theaters, rather than on Disney Plus directly. Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire 2024. Get ready for another epic showdown on April 12, 2024, in the sequel to the 2021 MonsterVerse hit. Directed by Adam Wingard, this film features an impressive cast including Dan Stevens, Rebecca Hall, Brian Tyree Henry, Kaylee Hottle, Fala Chen, Alex Ferns, and Rachel House. But here's the twist. Instead of being foes, the legendary kaiju Godzilla and Kong seems to be joining forces this time. They're teaming up to face a massive hidden threat lurking in our world. Leading the charge is Dan Stevens, and he's joined by familiar faces from Godzilla vs. Kong. So get ready for more monstrous action as Adam Wingard, the director of the previous film, takes the helm once again. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes 2024. Set to hit theaters on May 24, 2024, and directed by Wes Ball. This film features a talented cast, including Owen Teague, Freya Allen, Peter Macon, Ika Darville, and Kevin Durand. Now you might be wondering how the story continues, since Caesar, the chimpanzee who led the apes to global dominance, met his end in War for the Planet of the Apes back in 2017. Well, fear not. The franchise marches forward with a fresh perspective, set in a distant future beyond the events of war. Wes Ball, known for his work on the Maze Runner films, is at the helm to bring this exciting new chapter to life. So, get ready to embark on another thrilling adventure in the world of apes and humans. Ballerina, June 7, 2024. Ballerina is an upcoming action thriller set within the shared universe of the John Wick movies. It marks the franchise's inaugural spin-off, distinct from being a direct sequel, and its narrative fits within the canon between the events of the third and fourth John Wick films. Returning to their iconic roles are Keanu Reeves, Ian McShane, and the late Lance Reddick. The movie stars Ana de Armas as an assassin on a quest for vengeance against those responsible for her family's demise. While it may initially seem akin to a female counterpart to John Wick, the involvement of the cast and the release of production images have generated significant excitement. Captain America Brave New World, July 26, 2024. Captain America Brave New World marks the initial installment in the Captain America series without Chris Evans portraying the iconic character. The shield has been taken up by the Falcon Sam Wilson, portrayed by Anthony Mackie, as he assumes the mantle of the new Captain America. Joining Mackie and Sebastian Stan is Harrison Ford. While details about the film are scarce, there is speculation that it will bear a strong resemblance to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Additionally, it is rumored to draw inspiration from Aldous Huxley's renowned work, Brave New World. Deadpool 3, May 3, 2024. After a 6-year hiatus, it's finally time to embrace Deadpool's return to the MCU. In a fashion similar to Spider-Man and Loki, Deadpool 3 is set to introduce alternate versions of characters. Alongside Deadpool, we can anticipate appearances from various MCU figures, including Wolverine and Loki, among others. While specific plot details remain scarce, it's been disclosed that Deadpool and Wolverine will join forces to combat a shared adversary. Staying true to Deadpool's signature style, the film is likely to feature unexpected celebrity cameos, with Taylor Swift rumored to be the latest addition to the list. Alien Romulus, August 16, 2024. Alien Romulus is intended as a self-contained film with entirely new characters. Specific plot details remain undisclosed, leaving us with limited information. However, it is confirmed to center around a group of young individuals on a remote planet, confronting the most fearsome creature in the universe. Ridley Scott will serve as the producer for this new addition to the Alien franchise. He will collaborate with seasoned horror filmmakers Fede Alvarez and Rodos Sayagues, known for their work on Don't Breathe and the 2013 Evil Dead. Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Hold on to your rings, because Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is racing into theaters on December 20, 2024, and it's bound to be a high-speed adventure. Jeff Fowler is back in the director's chair, steering the action-packed journey of our favorite blue speedster, Sonic. Returning to their roles from the previous movies are Ben Schwartz as the voice of Sonic, Colleen O'Shaughnessy as Tails, and Idris Elba as the tough Knuckles. However, there's a bit of uncertainty about Jim Carrey reprising his role as the villainous Dr. Robotnik, but he's been thinking about retirement from acting. But don't worry, a new baddie is coming to shake things up. In the post-credit scene of Sonic 2, the second film in the series, we got a sneak peek of Shadow the Hedgehog, a formidable adversary who's all set to challenge Sonic in this upcoming installment. So, get ready for another thrilling Sonic adventure. The Batman Part 2, October 3, 2025. Warner Brothers and DC Comics recognize the incredible potential within the Batman franchise, a world filled with a wide array of characters, villains, settings, and mythologies. Because of this, they're actively working on multiple Batman-themed movies that differ significantly from each other in terms of their timelines, cinematic universes, and overall themes. We had The Batman in 2022, starring Robert Pattinson as a young Dark Knight, facing off against particularly menacing versions of iconic Batman foes like the Penguin and the Riddler. The film, directed and co-written by Matt Reeves, executed this vision so effectively that Warner Brothers recognized the potential for further exploration, especially given the impressive box office earnings of $770.8 million, highlighting the significant audience interest in the project. But even before all these exciting projects, there's another full-fledged Batman movie in the pipeline. According to DCU executives James Gunn and Peter Safran, The Batman Part 2 is set to hit theaters on October 3, 2025. What makes this one unique is that it won't be part of the main DC universe, but will instead be classified as a DC Elseworlds project, creating its own distinct narrative universe separate from the broader DC universe. Get ready for more thrilling Batman adventures. Superman Legacy, July 11, 2025. With the launch of James Gunn and Peter Safran's fresh DC universe on television, led by Waller and the Creature Commandos, the upcoming movie Superman Legacy is poised to be the flagship of this reinvigorated franchise. Mark your calendars for its release on July 11, 2025. In this film, we're introduced to a new Superman, portrayed by David Corenswet, who steps into the iconic role previously held by Henry Cavill's DCEU Man of Steel. What's intriguing about Superman Legacy is that it doesn't retread Superman's origin story. Instead, it delves into the life of Clark Kent, who's already an established reporter at the Daily Planet and has crossed paths with significant figures like Lois Lane. The narrative revolves around his struggle to balance his Kryptonian heritage with his Kansas upbringing. Adding to the excitement, James Gunn takes on the dual roles of screenwriter and director for this project. Get ready for a fresh take on the Man of Steel and a whole new chapter in the DC Cinematic Universe. This marks the end of this video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and share it. Let us know your opinions in the comments section. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you at the next one.
Fantastic. I cannot wait for Deadpool 3. Anyway, listen, we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be back with more of SOULIVITY Today in a couple of minutes. SOULIVITY Today is brought to you by Assume control over your weight and broader health with the 80 Bites program by Physical Mind Institute.
For 50 years, we've been told, load up your plate with veggies. Load them up. Because all this spinach, look at it, all the spinach is only 100 calories. But avoid fat, because a tiny sliver of butter is also 100 calories. So spinach is good, butter is bad, right? But not today. Now we're told, put butter on everything, even in your coffee. Why? Because fat doesn't spike insulin, as carbs do. And stretching the stomach with all those veggies unbalances our digestive hormones. So eat healthy today means fat, fasting, stomach control, right here's the stomach. Forget calories. Hormones rule, and 80 Bites is the solution.
Are you ready to take that first step towards true, unwavering inner happiness? Are you like thousands of people who have everything they need, not want, but need, and still can't seem to find happiness and fulfillment in their lives? If so, the Steps to Happiness show is for you. On my show, you will learn about the principles and practices that lead to true inner happiness. Because guess what? It isn't found in our external environment, but within ourselves instead. Together with my guests, we will explore the latest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being practices, and together we'll advise you on the actionable steps you can take towards a happier, more fulfilled, authentic life. So I invite you to join me each week on SOULIVITY TV on the Steps to Happiness show with me, Teresa Greco.
Hey there, we're back with more of SOULIVITY Today. Let's get to our last story. Freya Rossetti, 32, was just 11 years old when her dad, Philip Hargraves, died of esophageal cancer at the age of 53. But in the weeks before he died, a pub landlord, he wrote 9 cards to Freya, 8 for birthdays, and a final one on her wedding day. Then that special day came with Freya's mother reading this final card to commensurate her everlasting love for her. You know, here's more of this really heartwarming story from The Independent across the pond in London, England.
Phil, my late husband, and Freya's much-loved dad. Most of you will know he died when Freya was 11 and left a huge void in her life. Whilst he was very ill, I brought a selection of cards and helped him to write them for Dan and Freya to receive on their birthdays and on their wedding day. I have the last one here today for Freya, and she would like to share it with you and so include her dad on her special day. Sorry, guys. This is 20 years old now. Freya, I wish I could be standing next to you, the proudest dad in the world, to walk you down the aisle, to the man that you love and to the next chapter in your life. Today is your day. Enjoy everything about it. Laugh, cry, be happy and confident. Face everything full on. You will then succeed in your life together. You gave me some of the proudest moments in my life with your sense of humour, intelligence, understanding and caring nature. Don't ever change. Love you forever.
Oh man, I love that. I love that. Such a great, great story. Listen, everybody, we're going to take another quick break and we'll be back with more of SOULIVITY Today in just a moment.
Hi there, Sheila Applegate here with some exciting news. I've joined the incredible SOULIVITY team as the host of the new Consciously Awesome live show, where I will be sharing insights to help you discover your full brilliance and claim the vibrant life you deserve. So tune in every Wednesday right here on SOULIVITY TV to join the fun, and remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Would you like to be one of the first people to experience mental freedom? Mental freedom is a coaching practice with 6 core principles: improving hope, self-efficacy, optimism, resilience, and general well-being. Mental freedom only takes 6 sessions. It is designed to give you the tools you need to help yourself. It can help with any situation: relationship problems, past trauma, career decisions, parenting challenges, addiction, and mental health concerns. Incorporating the mental freedom framework into your life will deliver an approach to master any situation and a pathway toward achieving inner peace. Mental freedom provides the information and tools that you need to grow and be bigger than anything that ever happens to you. So if you're looking for one-on-one or a group coaching program that will allow you to address any situation that comes up in your life with practical tools to give you more peace and joy, then join the Mental Freedom.
And the numbers are startling. This morning, we are discussing the
Wow, welcome back to SOULIVITY Today. So much to talk about and so little time. I'm so glad that you made it here today for another Hot Topics Friday. You know, this is how we do it every Friday. So we will see you back here each Friday for more news and topics from around the world. But before we go, let me tell you about some of the amazing things we're doing here at SOULIVITY. First and foremost, make sure that you're visiting our SOULIVITY website so you can learn more about soulivity.com and all the amazing information that we're sharing. And visit our SOULIVITY Today sponsors, Old Vine Wine Tours, that's doing some amazing trips and experiences to the Sonoma Valley of California, as well as check out 80 Bites, which is a fantastic free mobile app that is all about portion control and training your stomach so that you can manage your weight more effectively. Also, make sure that you're following us on social media, where you can learn more about all the happenings at SOULIVITY and our partners. We're on all the major social media platforms. But also remember that when you go there, go to our YouTube page and channel and subscribe, because when you do that, you'll find out whenever we're going live, and you can never miss a show. Also, all of our shows are there as well, so go check those out, including Steps to Happiness, Beauty and Gratitude, all the SOULIVITY Today shows, as well as Consciously Awesome Living. Trying to think if there's anything else I need to tell you guys about. One last thing, coming up on October 25th, Wednesday, is another Joy Keepers Cafe. That's in a couple of weeks. Make sure you go to joykeepers.org/cafe and reserve your seat. The time is at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. GMT in London, or at 5 o'clock in the evening time in Copenhagen. Listen, we really, really, really appreciate you being here for another SOULIVITY Today. I just, on behalf of all of us, I want to say thank you for joining us. This is what we do. We're trying to empower you every single day, and bring you news and information that is going to help your life better. So come back and join us every Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern time for our live broadcast on all of our SOULIVITY platforms. Or you can listen to us if you're out on the West Coast at 8 a.m. Pacific time on our amazing partner, KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. Waving to all my family out there saying, hey, 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 hey. Listen, until next time, please keep on having real conversations that empower you for your passion in terms of what you love to do, using that to serve, which is your purpose, and creating a life full of high quality living today. On behalf of everybody here at SOULIVITY, this is Brian Westley Johnson saying thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved. "6 years ago, when I started SOULIVITY, my vision was to support everyone in improving their life through the discovery of their passion and purpose, so they could become the best version of themselves, to battle fear and ignorance, and create a better world today. Get inspired to live your passion and purpose. Visit